Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're diving into a chilling, honestly kind of impossible sequence of events that unfolded at an abandoned home in Salem, Massachusetts. If you've ever been fascinated by unsolved mysteries, digital forensics, or cases where the timeline just doesn't seem to make physical sense, well, you're absolutely in the right place. We're going to lay out the facts, break down the physical evidence, and reconstruct exactly what happened on a night where the past and the present violently collided.
Let's start right at the cold open. Picture this. It's 2:13 a.m. in Salem. The streets are completely empty and it is pouring rain. At a local dispatch center, a 911 operator answers an incoming call. But instead of a frantic voice or someone pleading for help, there's just dead silence. Then, the sound of heavy breathing. And finally, cutting right through the static, a woman's terrified whisper utters just 4 words. "He's still inside." And then, the line goes completely dead.
The dispatcher immediately traces the origin of that call, and the location comes back to 17 Hawthorne Street. Detective Daniel Reed and Officer Jessica Cole rush to the scene, lights flashing through the wet streets, fully expecting to interrupt a home invasion in progress. But instead, they find an old house sitting in total darkness. When they make entry, the place is completely abandoned. We're talking furniture covered in a thick layer of dust, absolutely no signs of a struggle, and not a single person anywhere to be found.
Okay, so here is where things get wild. The forensics team locates the old landline telephone in the house that supposedly just made this call. But when a technician checks the connection, they find that the physical phone line going to this house was entirely severed almost 3 years ago. So the question we have to grapple with right out of the gate is this: how does an empty, dust-covered house make an emergency call on a landline that has been physically disconnected for years?
Which brings us to part 1, the missing wife and the first clues. Digging into the property's history, Officer Cole uncovers an old family photo of a young woman named Sarah Mitchell. And when Detective Reed runs her name through police records, a massive red flag pops up. Sarah Mitchell actually vanished from this exact house 3 years earlier. She was last seen by her husband, Mark, supposedly leaving the house with a small bag, looking nervous. The case was never solved. Learning this forces Detective Reed to ask the obvious question, right? If Sarah has been missing for years, whose voice was just on the phone tonight? So Detective Reed goes back to the digital evidence. He's replaying the 911 tape, and he manages to isolate this really faint, rhythmic ticking sound in the background of the woman's whisper. He searches the abandoned house for the source of that sound, which leads him straight down into the basement. Down there, he finds an antique wall clock, and its hands are frozen at exactly 2:13 a.m. When forensics pulls that clock away from the wall, they discover a secret hidden compartment tucked right behind it. Inside that hidden space, they don't find a weapon, they find a photograph of Sarah. But it's what's written on the back of this photo that completely changes the game. In her handwriting are these chilling instructions. If anything happens to me, look beneath the house. This single piece of evidence immediately shifts the entire physical investigation underground. And that leads us right into part 2, secrets beneath the floorboards. Following Sarah's breadcrumb trail beneath the wooden floorboards, they pull up the floor to reveal a dark, narrow, hidden staircase leading deep underground. As Detective Reed descends into this dusty tunnel, he hits an old, locked metal door. When they force it open, they don't just find some empty storage space. They find a small, secret room obsessively plastered with photographs covering the walls. Reed recognizes Sarah in these photos. It becomes terrifyingly clear that someone had been secretly stalking Sarah Mitchell from within the walls of her very own home. All right, part 3, the husband's dark secret. Obviously, all eyes are now on her husband, Mark. He denies everything. But forensics, they find his fingerprints all over that hidden metal door. The critical breakthrough, though, comes when technicians sweep the hidden room. They uncover a tiny security camera tucked behind a wall vent. When they recover the old footage from the device, Sarah appears on the screen, looking incredibly frightened. Looking dead into the lens, she delivers a damning message. "If you're watching this, Mark knows I found out." And right after she says that, the footage just cuts to black. Suddenly, all the pieces of that fateful night just snap together. Based on the digital forensics and the physical evidence, investigators reconstruct the terrifying timeline from 3 years ago. At 2:09 a.m., Sarah runs through the basement, being chased by Mark. At 2:10 a.m., she manages to lock herself inside that hidden stalker room. At 2:11 a.m., she grabs the old telephone in the room, hands shaking, and attempts to dial 911. But at 2:12 a.m., Mark violently breaks through the metal door. But it actually doesn't end at 2:12.
Technicians managed to pull one final, harrowing audio file from the hidden camera's hard drive, timestamped exactly at 2:13 a.m. on the night she disappeared. On this recording, Sarah is heard crying, literally begging whoever eventually finds the tape not to trust anyone who says she left voluntarily. And in the background of that audio, a man's voice says her name. Detective Reed instantly recognizes it. It's Mark.
And now for part 4, the final chilling twist. Confronted with all this hidden evidence, Mark finally breaks. During interrogation, he confesses to imprisoning Sarah after finding out she planned to leave him. However, he drops an absolute bombshell. He claims he didn't kill her. He insists she somehow managed to escape the hidden room through a second underground passage that led beneath the neighboring property. So the crucial point we have to ask here, and the question the detectives are desperately trying to answer, is this. If she really escaped through the tunnel 3 years ago, where has she been, and how on earth did that 911 call get made from the empty house tonight? Police sprint back to the house to check out the supposed escape tunnel. But as they get to the very end of the passage, the gut punch reality sets in. There is no exit. There was no escape. Instead, they find a sealed concrete wall. When they break through it, they uncover a tiny makeshift tomb. Sarah isn't there, but inside, they find her missing cell phone. When digital forensics powers up that missing phone, the final piece of this impossible puzzle clicks into place. It turns out that phone held a single, scheduled text-to-voice message. It was programmed by Sarah 3 years earlier, rigged to bridge the connection and play a recorded whisper to 911 dispatch on a timer. The full message reads, "If you ever hear this house, call 911. I'm already gone." She knew she wasn't making it out, but she made absolutely sure that eventually her husband would be caught. Now, you'd think that's the end of the story. Case closed, right? But the source material leaves us with one last seriously unsettling detail. As the investigation wraps up and dawn breaks over Salem, the old house sits completely empty once again. But inside the dusty living room, that same physically disconnected landline telephone suddenly begins to ring one last time. And when it goes to the answering machine, a final impossible whisper is heard over the speaker. "You found me." As we wrap up this explainer, I really want to leave you with this thought. We often look at abandoned buildings and we usually just see wood, glass, and dust. But this case proves that the physical space around us holds on to the past. Some houses keep secrets, carefully hidden behind locked doors and fake walls. But what happens when those secrets wait long enough and fight hard enough to finally be heard? What other silent histories are hidden just beneath the floorboards, just waiting for someone to finally listen? Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer, and remember, always keep questioning what you see on the surface.